Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Noose with Tim Lynch. I'm Tim Lynch. Today's episode is really not anything timely. It's not something, I just saw in the news or something came up on my X feed. Nothing someone sent a message to me. It's really something I've been discussing, talking about, thinking about for years, and that is the flying spaghetti monster. Now, most of you probably have heard of this before, know exactly what it is. But others might be a little bit more like, what you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
So, just to make sure we're all on the same page, what is the flying spaghetti monster? So, in order to get a legitimate explanation, objective, I went to the internet, which is nothing but true. And I didn't go to Wikipedia, which is like the internet, but even more true. I went to a site called Britannica.com, which I'm assuming is probably the modern version of the old Encyclopedia Britannica, or someone bought out the Encyclopedia Britannica name and turned this, I don't know, whatever. But here's what they put for the flying spaghetti monster. So, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster began in 2005 when Bobby Henderson, a recent physics graduate of Oregon State University, sent a letter to the Kansas Board of Education. Now, you might be thinking, all right, what's some physics guy from Oregon sending a letter to the Kansas Board of Education? What's that about? And that's because at the time, the Kansas Board of Education was debating about whether or not to include intelligent design as part of their high school curriculum when they were teaching about evolution. Intelligent design being kind of the religious aspect of evolution, that it was, comes from a higher power or God. Obviously, Bobby Henderson did not believe in any religious beliefs, certainly about the creation of the universe. And so to parody this, he said you had to include his religion, which was clearly fake. I mean, he was not trying to say that his was real. He was obviously just being funny about it. Because in his mind, his fake religion had equal weighting to, the Judeo-Christian beliefs. So the website goes on. The letter, which parodied the reasoning used to argue a scientific basis for intelligent design, stated that teaching about intelligent design must also include the alternative theory that the universe was created by a flying spaghetti monster. Now, I'm the first one to say it's pretty funny. And as it gained traction, people who really kind of love this idea and, were non-religious or frankly anti-religious got onto it, and those followers called themselves pastafarians. Get it? Pasta. Anyway, again, I think that's kind of funny. And for the most part now, when you see references to the flying spaghetti monster, you'll see it really in one of two ways. One, you'll see it on the back of someone's car, like this, because they're parodying the Jesus fish you'll see on other cars. Or you will hear the phrase from atheists or non-religious people, well, I don't need a flying spaghetti monster to tell me murdering is bad. Okay. Well, the argument is that the atheist is saying that their inherent morality is all they need to know what's good or bad. To know that stealing is bad, rape is bad, it's bad, okay? I don't need a flying spaghetti monster to tell me whatever, meaning I don't need a religion. But you do. Now, this is a good time to tell you, I'm not going on one of those tangents right now, by the way. This is very germane. I don't have a dog in this race. I don't belong to any formal religion. I don't go to church. I was never baptized. I do not know or pretend to know the mysteries of the universe, despite what some people will tell you. So now why do I think that you, or we all, need a flying spaghetti monster? Well, because morality does not come from nowhere. We're not inherently wonderful people because of our DNA. Our morality comes from our upbringing. And early on, that's, parents, family, but also friends, schools, teachers, movies, TV, music. Really everything around us shapes our morality. But you know what I didn't mention in any of that? Church. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because really we're talking about non-religious people even needing a flying spaghetti monster. So I'm going to assume those people either had no religion in their life or very early on, very little and not followed. So as a tangent incoming, along the atheists, why do they have to proselytize? Like, I get it. You don't believe in a higher power. Fine. I'm not even saying you're wrong. But I don't think you need more discussion or to spread the word. But they go out and spread the word. I mean, they'll go talk to people, argue their points, go on shows. I mean, they'll even buy billboards. I got billboards for you. So here's one from Sioux Falls. And this is from the Sioux Falls Atheist. It says, millions are good without God. 98 million Americans are living happily without religion. Here's another one from the AmericanHumanist.org, right? Saying, hey, I don't need a religion to be human. But their billboard says, want a better world? Prayer not required. Here's another one, because there's many, from the Mid-Ohio Atheists. I wonder if they ever scrap with the Northern Ohio Atheists. Were they ever like one Ohio group and they split? And their billboard is kind of a fake, faith is a virtue, where they scratched out faith and wrote reason, i.e. reason is a virtue, meaning faith is not a virtue, or at least is unnecessary. Here's one from the OKCCOR.org. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's Oklahoma City. Whatever it is, it says, don't believe in God? Join the club. Strong work, guys. Using bandwagon as a marketing technique. Strong sales. And here's the last one I'm going to show you, at least. And this is from the American Atheists. So it's all across the U.S., not just the Mid-Ohio people. And it shows a picture of Santa with his, finger up to his lips, like in a sort of pose. And it says, go ahead and skip church. Just be good for goodness sake. Happy holidays. And all I could think of is, you remember the joke about the Seinfeld show? Everyone said it's a show about nothing. That's like this. Let's make a club, raise funds, spend money, and tell people to, what, not believe in anything? Who cares? You want to tell people not to believe in anything? I just don't understand the point. By the way, in reference to that last billboard, you want to show Mulse? Instead of doing a billboard that says skip church with a picture of Santa, how about doing a skip mosque with a picture of Allah or Muhammad? Then I'll know you really believe in something, or believe you don't believe in something. Anyway, back to the flying spaghetti monster. So why do our morals require a flying spaghetti monster, as I postulate? Well, because if we didn't have rules, we'd do what we want. I do what I want.
Whatever, I do what I want.
And I know the first response from the atheists would be something like, well, as they always say, I don't need a flying spaghetti monster to tell me not to murder or whatever. But the reason they say this is because they think their morals are ingrained to their humanity. They don't need anything else. And here we have perhaps one of the most fundamental differences between a religious person, or at least, a Christian or a Jew, and an atheist, is their thought on man's inherent nature. So atheists think man is inherently good, which is probably why they think communism will work. I know. I keep beating the dead horse, but the horse keeps getting up. And ironically, communism, by definition, requires stealing, right? Seize the means of production. And by practicality, it's going to require murder and imprisonment. But I'll leave that for another show. Christians believe man is inherently flawed, if not evil. And so if we go by the atheist belief that man is inherently good, one would not need a flying spaghetti monster to tell them to rape, murder, steal, etc. But let me lay out the proof that that is not so. Let's start with the atheist's own talking points. We're just animals. We're no different than monkeys. We're descended from apes. All right, well, we're just nature. Okay. You ever watch a nature show? You ever turn on the channel and see a gazelle near a watering hole? If you like gazelles, turn the channel, because there's about to be a murder. And that's natural. And we accept that. Murder's part of nature. Animals murder other animals. And when animals reproduce, they don't ask for permission. And what happens in nature, if that were to happen amongst humans, we'd call that rape. All natural. And I know the response to that is going to be, well, we're descended from animals. We can think. We're not animals, per se. Okay, let's go with that. But that being said, most people say actually we're not any better than animals, so those examples still stick. But let's go with that. We're not animals. Or we've descended. Or ascended. I don't think that's a word they'd use either. So next, I'm going to pull an argument from the trans community. You know how that they always say that being trans is normal and that trans people or queer people or whatever alphabet letter you are have been accepted parts of societies for thousands of years? You can probably imagine where I'm going to go with this. But for shits and giggles, I decided to search cannibalism as an accepted part of society. And I found an article written by Ben Thomas, and this was published at least most recently, April 20th, 2017, entitled, "Eating People is Wrong, but It's Also Widespread and Sacred." Published at Aeon, A-E-O-N, but republished as well. Anyway, not just accepted, sacred. And it read, "Cannibalism is not uncommon. Humans have long enshrined the consumption of human flesh in sacred ritual, not just a few times, but again and again in almost every corner of the globe. Evidence for cannibalistic practices has been found in South America, on many Pacific islands, among ancient Native American tribes, and in many other regions of the world." Now, when I was planning this show, I wanted to then go on and just do the same thing over and over. You know, murder is accepted part of societies, rape is part of accepted part of society, etc. I didn't have to because I just kept reading this article. So I read unto you, "Nor is cannibalism a distant historical fact. In the 1980s, Médecins Sans Frontières, which translates to Doctors Without Borders, you've probably heard of them, the international medical charity documented," so this is not some conservative group, by the way, "documented ritualized cannibal feasts among soldiers in Liberia. Since then, the ritual has become more common. By the early 2000s, sacred cannibalism was a common practice in this near-anarchic country where violence, rape, and drug abuse are widespread. Cannibalism has also been documented in the Congo." There I was, in the Congo. "In Sierra Leone, and in Uganda, where it was infamously practiced among the child soldiers of Joseph Kony's army." Child soldiers. I think they used those in the Soviet Union too. So now I have all these other greats now, right? Violence, rape, etc. So I will spare you the accepted, nay sacred, brutality of other human cultures, apparently both past and current, to keep things moving on. Trust me, human nature is littered with accepted brutality, not the least of which is throughout the peaceful American Indians that the libs hold on to be so one with nature, right? The Native Americans are so one with nature. Although, again, I believe that I established nature is brutal and relentless. So, anyway, by the way, if you go and search on your own, like go to Google and want to look up these barbaric acts among the Native American population, set aside some time. And not because, oh, there's so many of them. Yes. But it's because when you search things like, quote, brutal acts in Native Americans or whatever, Google is going to come up with a list of brutal acts against Native Americans because such is their liberal bent. So you have to take some time to find other conservative thoughts. So anyway, we've talked about murder, rape, stealing, etc. I assume I do not have to bring up sources to demonstrate that slavery was an accepted practice even in our own country hundreds of years ago. And slavery is still practiced in the world today. In fact, there are more slaves in the world today than ever. But before you say, well, we had religion back then and we had slaves, I will also say the slaveholders didn't follow the religion, right? Because you remember the abolitionists? The abolitionists were Christians who said, we are not following the Bible. They said slaves were human, made in the image of God. So, yeah, even that needed religion. But I want to bring up one other article. And this was published in 2018 by a woman named Karen McQuillan. And this article was published in response to one of Trump's comments about immigration. You probably remember it when he made a comment about immigration and why we have to accept these people from these shithole countries. And I remember when that came out, there were two responses. The left, of course, said, with the pearl clutching and shocking, oh my God, how could he say such a thing? And the right was the predictable, I know, right? But anyway, this article was written by a Peace Corps volunteer, or Peace Corps if you're an Obama man, who has been to these countries. And permit me to read her excerpts to you. So this is an article entitled What I Learned in the Peace Corps in Africa. Trump is right. So she begins, 3 weeks after college, I flew to Senegal, West Africa to run a community center in a rural town. Life was placid, with no danger, except to your health. That danger was considerable because it was, in the words of the Peace Corps doctor, a fecalized environment. In plain English, shit was everywhere. People defecate on the open ground, and the feces is blown with the dust onto you, your clothes, your food, the water. He warned us the first day of training, do not even touch water. Human feces carries parasites that bore through your skin and cause organ failure. Sounds like LA. Now, never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that a few decades later, liberals would be pushing the lie that Western civilization is no better than a third world country, or would teach 2 generations of our kids that loving your own culture and wanting to preserve it are racism. She goes on. Senegal was not a hellhole. Very poor people can lead happy, meaningful lives in their own culture's terms. But they are not our terms. The excrement is the least of it. Our basic ideas of human relations, right and wrong, are incompatible. Sound familiar? As a 21-year-old starting out in the Peace Corps, I loved Senegal. In fact, I was euphoric. I quickly made friends and had an adopted family. I relished the feeling of the brotherhood of man. People were open, willing to share their lives, and after they knew you, their innermost thoughts. The longer I lived there, the more I understood. It became blindingly obvious that the Senegalese are not the same as us. The truths we hold to be self-evident are not evident to the Senegalese. How could they be? Their reality is totally different. You can't understand anything in Senegal using American terms. Take something as basic as family. Family was a few hundred people extending out to second and third cousins. All the men in one generation were called father. Senegalese are Muslim with up to 4 wives. Girls had their clitorises cut off at puberty. I witnessed this at what I thought was going to be a nice coming-of-age ceremony like a bat mitzvah or confirmation. Sex, I was told, did not include kissing. Love and friendship and marriage were Western ideas. Fidelity was not a thing. Married women would have sex for a few cents to have cash for the market. Believe me, I'm coming to an end here. Yet family was crucial to people there in a way Americans cannot comprehend. The 10 Commandments were not disobeyed. They were unknown. The value system was the exact opposite. You were supposed to steal everything you can to give to your own relatives. There are some westernized Africans who try to rebel against them. They fail. So everything the atheists believe, that they do not need a flying spaghetti monster to know what is wrong. Without a flying spaghetti monster, humans acceptably murder, rape, steal, enslave, covet thy neighbor's wife, etc. So now the question is, well, what makes the American atheists different? So atheists who grew up without a God or going to church or synagogue, they know it's wrong to murder and rape and steal, but how? Because American atheists did not grow up without a God. They grew up in a Judeo-Christian culture. They were raised in a Judeo-Christian culture. They just did not appreciate it. The Judeo-Christian culture is inherent in our Western civilization. By the way, this is why when you take courses about Western history in school, we call it Western Civ. This year I'm taking Western Civ. But when you learn about the world, the courses are called world history. Even the educators can't lie about that difference. Now, I will honestly tell you, this show is genuinely things I've been discussing for many years. But I would feel dishonest if I did not include one more line from the last article I referenced. And that is, Americans think it is a universal human instinct to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, the golden rule. It's not. It seems natural to us because we live in a Bible-based Judeo-Christian culture. And I was like, yes, damn it. She just said what I've spent a whole, thing coming up with and making this podcast to demonstrate. And she just already said it. So I give her credit because I give credit where credit is due. I steal no valor. And this is probably why I will not become a professor at Oxford. And I'm white. So there you have it. You need a flying spaghetti monster. You are not inherently good, but I love you anyway. And probably because I was raised in a Judeo-Christian culture. But before I go, I'm gonna leave you with one more thing, because God, there's always one more thing with me. So while I was preparing this show, I was reading a book written by Brandon Sanderson. He's a sci-fi fantasy writer, and he wrote this book was called Tailored Realities. It was published in 2025, but it consisted of a bunch of works, mostly short stories, novellas that he had done for many years. And one of the short stories was called Defending Elysium, which was originally written in 2001, originally published in 2008. And in this story, so it's set in the future, right? Sci-fi. Our human population had a relationship with an advanced alien life population. And one of their ambassadors was murdered by a human. And the human investigator went to talk to the alien ambassador. His name was Sohn. And, apologizing for what happened. And Sohn's response went thusly. Sohn waved a claw-like hand, a symbol of denial. You must understand that he, meaning the advanced alien life form ambassador, he knew the risks of living in an undeveloped civilization. Creatures of lesser intelligence cannot be held responsible for their acts of barbarity. You have not yet learned a better way. Art imitates life. Obviously, it flipped the script, right? We were the uncivilized. But the point remains, barbarity is our nature. We had to learn a better way. And we did. Initially, it was thrust upon us with religion, but our religion was so ingrained with our civilization that we took it for granted. Most, now ignore it. Many mock it. That's the flying spaghetti monster. Because those atheists, they don't want the truth. Because deep down in places they don't talk about at parties, they want that flying spaghetti monster. They need that flying spaghetti monster. And I need you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Daily Noose.